And we've been breaking down the draft class that the Cleveland Browns have had, the worst draft classes that the Cleveland Browns have had since they returned in 1999. And we've already gone through the four. To recap here, we had the Braylon Edwards 2005 draft as the C tier. We have the Bo Bell-led 2008 draft class as the D tier. Thank you, Atapa Rubin. And then we have the F tier as the 2011 draft class, as well as the 2013 Barkevius Mingo-led draft class as well. Now, again, this isn't just me. This isn't just my rankings. I want to hear from you guys. Tell us what you think about this, and what are your thoughts? What do you think is the worst draft class that the Browns have had since they returned in 1999? Go ahead and let us know in the comments down below. But to get back to our final four when it comes to these draft classes, look, I mentioned it before the break, and we're going to talk about this a little bit here coming up with Jake Underwood in our What If segment here coming up. But the 2014 draft class, I mean, the potential that was there, so many great names that you've heard and are household names at this point, you know, between Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, so many great players that, you know, we constantly hear name dropped year after year after year, and yet the Cleveland Browns came away with nobody in round one. You had Justin Gilbert that was selected with the 8th overall draft pick. Johnny Manziel selected with the 22nd overall draft pick. The one saving grace that I will say from that draft class, Joel Bitonio, future Hall of Famer in my opinion. But again, I think that he's somebody who pretty much saves this from being an absolute dumpster fire. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the D tier. Now, I'd give it higher, but again, it was, you know what? Actually, no. We're doing this on the fly. I got you. We're moving it up to C. And this is the reason why. Because at least when it comes to Joel Bitonio, I think he's Hall of Fame level. I can't put that in the D tier. But on top of that, you've had Christian Kirksey, who obviously is still a starter in the NFL. He's bounced around for a couple of seasons now. But the other one, too, that's underrated that people don't talk about as much, Pierre Dazir out of Lindenwood, the long corner that they selected in round 4. He's still in the NFL, still getting starts, has started for multiple teams across the league. He's still a good player in the NFL, so he's somebody who is still getting run in the NFL. However, the big three of Justin Gilbert, Johnny Manziel, Terrence West really are the ones that sink this draft class from being a lot higher, in my opinion, when it comes down to it. But like I said, we'll get into the what-ifs of that draft class with Jake Underwood here coming up in just a little bit. But, you know, following that up, again, rough couple years for the Cleveland Browns, I think is safe to say at this point. But you look at the 2015 draft, from them moving down with the Buffalo Bills, who selected Sammy Watkins at that point. The Cleveland Browns picked up another first-round pick in 2015. They ended up selecting Danny Shelton, nose tackle out of Washington, with their own first-round pick, and Cam Irving, offensive lineman from Florida State, with their other first-round picks. Other notable picks that year, Duke Johnson out of Miami was selected in round 3. You also had Ibrahim Campbell selected in round 4. He's somebody who's still playing this past year, played for the Indianapolis Colts. Another notable name there in the back end was Ifo Ekpre Olumu, who was being utilized and really being looked at as a potential injury player who could come back from his ACL tear with Oregon. He was a first-round talent, ends up going to the Browns in round 7. Now, when it comes to 2015, I think that there were some players that you could have looked at for the Browns to be able to pick. Danny Shelton is somebody who's had a solid career, but in Cam Irving's been able to kind of rebuild, I guess, his career. Didn't play well with Cleveland, played too many different positions. They didn't really lock him down anywhere. So looking at Cam Irving, I think that he's somebody who you can look at as rehabilitating his career to this point. So now I'm going to go ahead, when it comes to this 2015 draft class, I'm going to put it in the D tier. You know, again, I think that it's one that, you know, we got to look at as, you know, not really the sexy picks that year. Obviously, Duke Johnson being the biggest name out of all of these guys. But, you know, again, just some guys having solid careers. You know what? No, I'll bump that up to C. I'll bump that up to C. It was a solid draft class overall. You know what? Nah, you know what? I'm changing my mind on that. Going back to D. Going back to D. They didn't have enough star power. They had a solid careers, but again, not enough star power in that draft class. I think that really didn't lead to much for the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, Duke Johnson playing well, but not enough to put it in the C tier, in my opinion. But then we move on to the 2016 draft class, and I know Sashi Brown and company, they talked about getting bites at the apple and again, making sure that you go ahead and have all of these draft picks that you can go ahead and take these different players. Corey Coleman being the first-round selection, I was a fan of him. Clearly, I was wrong and I was mistaken on that one. Then you have Emmanuel Ogba, defensive end out of Oklahoma State. He's somebody who has really turned his career since leaving the Cleveland Browns, left the Kansas City Chiefs, ended up finding a lot of success in Miami with the Dolphins over the last couple of seasons. He's going to be a free agent in 2022 now, so going to be interesting to see where he ends up going. But between him, Carl Nassib out of Penn State, you had some success, obviously, with Joe Seibert as well. And then Rashard Higgins being the notable fifth-round pick in this as well. I'm going to go ahead and I'll put this one in the D tier, mainly because of the fact that you had some success. Obviously, Emmanuel Ogba has found some success here as of late. But again, just not enough to put it over the hump for me, and not quite bad enough to where I think it deserves to be in that F tier. So I'm not going to put it quite in that F tier, but again, I think that it's one that is something to keep an eye on, at least when it comes to that team. And I think it really depends on the success of Emmanuel Ogba, as well as possibly Carl Nassib there as well. But last but not least, and this is one that, I understand, and straight away, 2019 draft class, we're putting this in incomplete. We're putting it in incomplete. Personally, I think that there's a decent amount that you can argue to put this on this list, but you still have Greedy Williams, who's still playing, second-round pick. He was their first selection there. Obviously, trading the first-round pick for Odell wasn't great. Didn't turn out well, clearly. DK Metcalf going after the Browns had selected Greedy Williams in round 2. Sione Takitaki, linebacker out of BYU. He was somebody who they selected in round 3 as well. He's somebody who is still kind of working his way up, a good run stopper. But Sheldrick Redwine, he's already moved on. Mack Wilson, he's now relegated to being a backup for this team. And then you have Austin Seibert, who, look, I know a lot of people are talking about Evan McPherson and, this is why you got to select a kicker. This is why you got to select a kicker. Austin Seibert is somebody who you just selected 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, and is already on a practice squad of his second team. So this is why, again, you look at the kicker position, it's very, very fickle, and it really depends on where they're being selected and who you are selecting here as well. You also have Drew Forbes, who has been dealing with a lot of injuries. He was obviously that X-factor prospect coming out for Dane Brugler as well. But, between him, then you also had Donnie Lewis rounding it up. It's only been a few years. I think that you can argue that this should be on this list, but I think that Greedy Williams, Sione Takitaki, they're the ones that are holding this up right now at this point, and I still think that it's incomplete. But that's my rankings here. So again, in the F tier, you have the Phil Taylor 2011 draft class, followed by the 2013 Barkevius Mingo draft class there as well. In the D tier, we have the Bo Bell-led 2008 draft class, followed up by the Danny Shelton and Corey Coleman led 2015 and 2016 draft classes. In the C tier, we have Braylon Edwards and company in the 2005 draft class, Johnny Manziel and company. I'm putting them in the C tier only because of Joel Bitonio. He doesn't belong in the D tier. And then last but not least, the incomplete of 2019 with Greedy Williams there as well. But again, this is a two-way street. That's my opinion. I want to hear what you guys think. Let us know in the comment section down below. What's the worst draft classes that you've seen from the Cleveland Browns since 1999?